Hello and welcome to the Federal. My name is Shreyas. Our guest today was introduced to the people of Karnataka as an actor. However, in recent years, he has become more of an activist and less of an actor. He voices his opinions when he feels something isn't right, and this has made him one of the most controversial persons in Karnataka. His recent tweets landed him in jail. So why does he create controversies, and what is he trying to achieve? Well, to talk more about it, we have the man himself, Mr. Chetan Ahimsa, actor and activist. Welcome, Chetan. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. Namaste.
Namaste. Chetan, the first question is, this was the second time that you were sent to jail for voicing your opinion. Now, have you thought about keeping a low profile here on?
The reasons for my arrest and jailing on both circumstances have been very questionable. If you look at last year, 2022, when I was put in jail for 7 days because of a tweet against a judge, it wasn't a contempt of court that was placed against me. It was enmity between communities that was placed against me, almost intentionally trying to put me in jail. And then even after the jail, there was bail problems, surety issues that seemed to be kind of trying to silence anybody that will question a judge in any capacity. Now, secondly, this particular tweet, which I questioned Hindutva, and they put 295A, claiming that I have somehow offended religious sentiments. Hindutva is a socio-cultural political ideology. It is not a religious ideology per se. It is a political ideology that is based on what we see as hate and lies. So I brought out that through a tweet on how Hindutva is built on lies. I connected that to Savarkar's statement. I connected that to 1992 and Ram Janmabhoomi, and I connected that to what is going on now in Karnataka with Uri Gowda, Nanjegowda claiming to have killed the well-known Kannadiga Tipu Sultan, and claiming that is all lies and equality is the truth. So I feel as though our ideas of equalitarianism through justice and rationality are the truth, are the transformative vision Karnataka requires and the nation requires. And since BJP, Hindutva, and the system cannot, through ideology or through rationalism, defeat our thought process, our ideas, and our ideology, they attempt to silence the voices that speak out, and they're silencing my voice and basically infringing and violating on my freedom of speech and trying to deprive me of that, which I think is very apparent considering the kind of support I've got all across on all political ideologies. And in fact, even BJP overwhelmingly, even if they disagree with what I'm saying, they say they also believe, a vast majority believe, I should have the right to articulate my ideas, which I articulate through fact and through rationalism instead of some sort of superstition or self-serving benefit.
I'll get to each one of the lines in your tweets in a while, but then I just want to ask you this question, because you mentioned that the BJP also came out in support and things. You said that. Do you think you're being targeted personally?
This particular tweet, as well as the last time I was in jail, I do look at it as a personal targeting. Now, if I have done something, for example, if I have promoted violence, then I am in some way, I am violating freedom of speech. If I have in any way talked about a community and targeting a community through hate, then I deserve to be disciplined and punished accordingly. But if I am making an intellectual point, which I did last year in terms of the hijab case, questioning whether this judge who had made an anti-women judgment has the ideological clarity to determine an issue that is gender-based in terms of hijab last year. And I'm also making an intellectual point this time around, questioning the Hindutva on its veracity, on its truthfulness, and saying that the truth is actually equality and not Hindutva, or not Brahmanism that the Congress and the JDS and the AAP, or even communism support. So I look at this as definitely a personal targeting, something that is being questioned more because of I am saying this and they cannot rebut my ideas, then something wrong or something inappropriate or something violative that I have said. Because Urigoda, Nanjegoda, lakhs of people in Karnataka have talked about, crores of people have talked about. Everybody's putting it up. Everybody's expressing their ideas. In fact, in terms of Urigoda, Nanjegoda, which are fictional characters, and you're talking about BJP politicians have made lots of outlandish, unverifiable claims about the truthfulness of these fantasy characters. Now, when they can make these claims, in fact, creating a lot of animosity or projecting or trying to create animosity between Muslims and Wakligas for their benefit in old Mysuru, then we can definitely should be able to say this is a lie based on historicity, based on facts, based on analysis and research. So I think this is definitely a personal targeting because they cannot defeat our ideological framework in the battleground of ideas. So they have to try to silence my voice and the voices of all of us who are speaking for equalitarianism.
I understand where you're coming from when you talk about Urigoda and Nanjegoda. You claim it to be a fictional character. I understand where you're coming from, but what caused an uproar was in your tweet. You started it off by saying Hindutva is based on lies. Now, what did you mean by that?
See, what I meant by that is the philosophy of Hindutva is, see, the term is coined by Savarkar maybe in 1923 in one of his writings when he termed the word Hindutva. 1925, the RSS, which is an organization that was started in Nagpur by Chitpavan Brahmins, actually takes this ideology, even though Savarkar is himself a Hindu Mahasabha leader, not an RSS leader, since he is a celebrity, he is used by the RSS to promote their ideology of Hindutva that we can define today, or a kind of an ideology that is based off that Hindutva premise that Savarkar spoke. Now, what is Hindutva? Hindutva, we look at it as a monolithic attempt at a Hindu Rashtra monolithic entity by demonizing Muslims and Christians. And at that time, if you look at Golwalkar statements, communists too. But essentially in the modern day, it is a Hindu monolithic identity that demonizes Muslims and Christians and religious minorities. Now, why that demonization is because Savarkar's ideology is based on the fact that all of India or Indianness or Hindu-ness that he likes to claim is based on the Indian subcontinent. And the religions that are outside the Indian subcontinent, that have religious shrines outside the religious subcontinent, such as Christianity and Islam, are somehow non-Indian, non-Indic, non-Hindu. But interestingly, the Aryan, if you look at the Aryan migration theory, which is a very validated theory and it has a lot of truth and it's buttressed by a lot of valid research. In fact, Hindu religion, which I didn't question in this tweet, but Hindu religion, which is something that Raja Ramohan Roy in 1816 defines as Chaturvarna, Brahmanism, Sanatana religion, Varnashrama, that Hindu religion is also a foreign entity that has come through Aryan migration in about 3,500 years ago. So this being said, my argument dealt with Hindutva that was about 100 years old, that the RSS promotes, that the BJP and the Sangh Parivar are extensions of political extensions, which is a socio-cultural political ideology. Now, I started it off by saying Savarkar's claim that the Indian nation begins by when Rama defeats Ravana and comes back to Ayodhya. Now, there's differences. Rama is brought in by Gandhi in a Rama Raja, in a virtuous Rama, but a conquering Rama is projected by Savarkar. Now, this conquering Rama is the start of the nation is not scientific. If you look at the start of the Indian nation state, we look at it as 65,000 years ago, that when the Adivasis and the Dravidas or the Muldivasis first migrated. Now, this is something that is based on science, is based on early Indians by Tony Joseph, that is based on Romila Thappar's research, that is based on lots of academic rigorous research. So that is the start of the Indian nation state to a way of 65,000 years ago, which is the Muldivasi culture. How can you claim that a fictional Rama defeats a fictional Ravana and then comes to an Ayodhya and then that's the start of the Indian nation? You could say it's not a truth, you could say it's a lie, you could say it's a concoction. And then I go on to say 1992, which was the very seminal year when BJP broke out across the nation as a Hindutva Rama, ideologically political, led by a vigorous conquering Rama. And the Rama Janmabhoomi, the birthplace, was this Babri Masjid, which has a lot of history in terms of maybe a Hindu temple before, maybe Buddhist places of worship, maybe even Jewish places of worship, which is a very syncretic spot to say that this is the birthplace of a fictional character and then use violence to promote that. That itself is based on a lie because a fictional character cannot have a birthplace. That similar lie is what I said, connecting to Uri Goda, Nanji Goda, who are fictional characters that, for example, Nanjaraja Arasu and many historians about Tipu have said these are fictional characters. They're not based on any science and evidence. And I don't want to say Uri Goda, Nanji Goda, but like are only fictional. I mean, like tomorrow they could start saying Mickey Mouse and Daffy Duck. So these are kind of make-believe characters. These are mythified, but these cannot be historicized. There must be a difference between myth and history.
Chetan, one, I understand that you well read and you probably have a good knowledge of history. However, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to stick to certain points. When you mention that Hindutva is based on lies, how do you react to the fact that a large section of Hindus were hurt, their sentiments were hurt by your generalized statement?
Number
Do you
one,
think you could have worded yourself better?
my intention was not to offend, it was to make aware. But if I am offending, that is a constitutional right of freedom of speech. To think means to offend. Now, are you offending by making hate speech? Not acceptable. Are you offending promoting violence? Not acceptable. But are you offending bringing out facts? Then so be it. In fact, Hindutva offends me every day by claiming that Tipu Sultan, the greatest Kannadiga or the most consequential Kannadiga of 300 years, and the second most consequential Kannadiga of 1,000 years after Basavarna, was in fact killed by fictional characters just for political benefit and communal exacerbation. Now, that being said, that is offensive. Now, when that is offensive, I am not going and trying to put them in jail. I am not saying that C.T. Ravi or Ashwath Narayan or a lot of these people or Muniratna Naidu who have made these claims, Shobha Karandlaje, should be jailed. I'm saying let them speak. We will defeat them in the battleground of ideas. So I am speaking and I don't need to offend, but sometimes our ideas do offend when they bring out facts.
Now,
and number two, Hindu religion is very different from Hindu. Hindu religion is Chaturvarna. Hindu religion is 3,500 years old. Hindu religion is what we call Brahmanism, many terms. Hindu religion is Vedic culture. Hindu religion must be defined in that Veda, Upanishad, Upasana, all these kind of framework. But Hindutva is a very different construct. It's a 100-year-old construct. It's a socio-cultural political ideology. If Hindutva wants to define itself as a religion, okay, separate Lingayat religion is saying we are not Hindu, we are a separate Lingayat religion. Now, Sarna Adivasi religions are saying they're a separate religion, they're not Hindu, and they predate Hinduism, Adivasi religions. Jainism got separate religion mandate in 2014. I will actually join hands with Hindutva and say our founder is Savarkar. We are a different religious entity. We are not Hindu religion. We disagree on these grounds. We agree on these grounds, but we are a separate religious entity, and let them have a separate religion. Hindutva cannot hijack Hinduism where it sees fit and then change it where it sees fit and then claim that we're all Hindu religion just because that terminology seems to have an overlap. We must differentiate between Hindustan, which is a geographical entity, Hindu Rashtra, which is a Hindutva concept of demonizing Muslims and Christians, and Hindu religion, which is a 3.5-year-old Vedic ideological paradigm. The word Hindu must be understood according to its own context. It cannot be generalized just for political expediency or being too touchy that nobody can talk and I will put 295A against you because I cannot defeat you in the battleground of ideas.
Chetan, you probably technically might be right, but then your tweet looked very generalized. However, I understand where you're coming from. So I'll move on to the next question because you spoke about it as well. That Babri Masjid is a birthplace of Rama is a lie. Now, that's one of the lines in your tweet. Now, isn't your statement against the opinion of one of the Supreme Court judges who was part of the Ayodhya case verdict?
See, if it is against the Supreme Court order, okay, if it is against that, first of all, in the Supreme Court order, my understanding is that this is the Janma Bhumi according to Ram, according to Hindu belief. Now, if I don't believe in that, then it's not according to my belief. But of course, then you could differentiate there. But if there is something that I'm going against a court order, then put the kind of what do you call sections according to that court order. We cannot put religious sentiments are being aggravated or being offended and put me in jail for 3 days on according to whatever you want. It must be based on, see, why I'm saying this is even last year when I was put in jail for 7 days on the basis of a tweet against the judge, I wasn't put contempt of court. There seemed to be an intentional attempt at jailing me on whatever spurious grounds they came up with, rather than using the sections that I would actually be filed under. So similarly, if there is something that I am going against a court judgment, and which I don't believe I am, but if there is, put those cases, I don't know how you could say offending religious sentiments when I am questioning a Hindutva, which is a political, socio-cultural ideology, not a religious mandated ideology. And even if I am questioning a religious mandated ideology, then that should be allowed in an open, robust democracy. But in actuality, I'm not here. So in that way, there's no valid grounds for that either.
So is that what you meant when you say Hindutva can be defeated?
Yes, Hindutva can be defeated. What I mean by Hindutva can be defeated is that these are ideological paradigms. Okay, just like, see, there's ideological paradigms in every major party in Karnataka. You talk about the BJP, which is based on Hindutva. You talk about Congress, JDS, and AAP, which are based on political Hinduism. You talk about communism, which is based on a kind of anti-capitalist framework. Now, these are the political ideologies overwhelming in Karnataka. How to defeat the dominant Hindutva discourse is not by the existing political ideologies today, whether that be Congress, JDS, AAP, or communists. It is actually by Ambedkar and Periyas, who are the greatest 20th century icons and the equalitarian icons who we admire and who we follow. These icons promoted an equalitarian vision through justice and rationality. Now, that vision of equalitarian, which is gender equality, caste equality, economic equality, linguistic equality, cultural equality, and all types of overarching equalities, this kind of policy or this kind of ideological framework can defeat Hindutva in the battleground of ideas, and also the other Brahminical political Hinduism forces too. And subsequently, this can be the truth, and we believe it as the truth, and this can be better the nation and make it a truly equalitarian nation, and most importantly, actualize and live the very basis of the Constitution's preamble. Because the basis of the Constitution's preamble is equality, justice, secularism, and socialism. None of the parties of Karnataka, and frankly, none of the parties in the nation today, with maybe few exceptions to some degrees, are actually actualizing those elements. Our ideological framework, inspired by Baba Sahib, Dande Periyar, and other people like Jyotiba Phule, Basavanna, Kuempu, similar equalitarians, we can put that ideological framework, if we articulate it properly, we can defeat all the other forces of inequality, which is a system, and we can bring in this ideological truth, which we hold as equalitarianism, and better the lives of all, or at least a vast majority of our people in Karnataka and across the nation.
Even if that is the case, I mean, you've taken on the BJP, you've taken on the Congress, right? So it's not that you're siding ways with one of these political parties. Now, when that is the case, why don't you join a particular political party that you can associate with, or maybe float your own political party if that is a way out?
Number one, if there was such a political party in the Karnataka context who had the ideological framework that, for example, Akanshi Ram, for example, might have built in a UP with the BSP back in the 80s and the 90s, which like an Annadurai from inspired from Periyar in Tamil Nadu after the DK movement built the DMK and very successfully kept the Delhi parties out. If there was such a political movement that even today materialized in Karnataka, I would readily join. But there isn't such a political movement that has Karnataka people's interests and mind and a valid solution to the problems, including a linguistic awareness and, of course, a socio-economic.
So why don't you start one?
See, starting a political party is paperwork, but leading a political party to be consequential is a very tall task. It is something that is not impossible, but requires decades of rigorous on-ground mobilization, and most importantly, a certain kind of mental and intellectual awareness. Now, what we do through our cater camps, through our grassroots movements, through our activism, through our social work, and through our tweets and social media kind of what we put out, is build this awareness. So if you want political change, you need societal change. If you want societal change, you need mental awareness. Now, mental awareness is not something that you can release a cinema overnight and by the next morning it'll be a super hit. It takes decades, it takes generations, and we are in the building process. Now, are we interested in benefit personally right now or ever? No. But do we think that this can be built in the long term? Yes. It will take time. I'm not looking for any kind of electoral benefit immediately or in the near future, but we do need a certain kind of long-term vision, and we are building that currently.
So, Chetan, you also know that, of course, the names that you mentioned, Periyar or Baba Sahib Ambedkar, it all took decades. It wasn't like you mentioned, an overnight thing. So you are trying to do that, but I'm sure you also somewhere realize that tweets and a couple of messages on WhatsApp will definitely not create that revolution that you want to bring in the society. All right. So having said that, I want to move on. The other question, your critics.
I would like to say just 1 second. What we need basically to build the movement successfully is people's awareness, social service, and activism. These are the three things. Now, people's awareness, social service, we know, is connecting to people on an intimate, emotional level, doing some kits, doing school supplies, benefiting people, a kabaddi tournament, benefiting people on their own individual community level, on an intimate level. And that's, of course, an activism, we know, coming to the streets, fighting the system. But when you talk about people's awareness comes with speeches, people's awareness comes with day-to-day interactions, people's awareness comes with cater camps, and people's awareness also comes through social media interaction. Today, if you really have that ideological clarity and vision, no matter who you are, no matter what kind of economic or educational or caste or community background, if you have the vision, you put it out there consistently, it will spread. Because to different levels, but it will spread because now everybody sees everybody's post. We're all a walking, talking media. So it's not that ideas are reserved for a Janamara wearing men like it was for thousands of years. Today, everybody has access to a voice and to a place where they can spread their ideas. So social media is an effective tool, but it cannot be limited to social media. We must go to the people. We must speak truth to power. We must fight against the system at the grassroots level with them, alongside them. But at the same time, we do need both macro and micro levels of activism and tweets. And so be it if you have to go to jail and sometimes controversies, these spread the vision of an egalitarian nation, and they come with the whole parcel of mobilization and grassroots building, society building, nation building. I'm not saying you should be limited to that, but without social media, which the BJP in 2014 successfully came to power through, which Congress and the many media sources are now, and the mainstream liberal media is also effectively using. We are also using it in our own limited but yet effective ways to strike at the lives and to influence and inform the lives of our most vulnerable, economically, socially, most marginalized groups.
Chetan, you talk about fighting for equality and against caste discrimination. You fight for the poor and the downtrodden. But your critics say that, yes, Chetan is always there. He's there. He's part of every protest. But where or how does he earn his money to run his family? Where is he making his money if he's always on the streets protesting?
See, I am a film actor and I have had successful films. And if I make one film, I earn enough for several years because I have some benefits. Number one, I have a family house that I live in that I don't have to pay rent for, which is a very big positive thing. Of course, my own food I need to pay for. Of course, my wife earns, she is also an engineer. She earns on her own and she earns a good living. Now, we don't have kids. Our interest is not to bring in kids. All the money I have, I use for either my own existence, which is quite limited in whatever I require, and societal building. So what I get from films and what I get from other sources for social work, whether it be people who I know who care about, who are connected to me in terms of my family, in terms of people who are committed to the movement, who give in terms of social work, that is given for social work. But my own existence is taken care of, and I make a decent amount in each film. I'm definitely overpaid in comparison to an average actor in any film industry, and I'm definitely overpaid in comparison to any farmer or somebody working with landless laborer. But at the same time, I'm not making as big as many stars are, but I do make enough that I can sustain myself quite well, and I don't have to worry about everyday food. But at the same time, our vision is how can we use whatever we have, live as simple as possible, but give back and do as much good. So it will require some degree of funds. Is it enough for me to live on my own? I can live on my own and protest, but our movement cannot be just like me living on my own and protesting. We need large scale benefits across the states, across the 225 constituencies we must reach. So we need some degree of funding for the activism and the human rights work that we intend to do. So we do need some funding, but we will never be involved, hopefully, in any kind of corruption or in any kind of misuse of funds or any kind of paying
So
for
where is
votes
that funding coming in?
See, at the present, we don't have any sources of funding. At the present, anything that I am using is either my own funds or whatever social work my immediate family will give for social work, whatever my wife or my parents and this and that for social work. But in the long run, if you want to build a larger movement, and I do plan on starting up an organization, the question will come in. Of course, people were inspired by Baba Sahib Ambedkar, who kept immaculate financial records. So there's no question of any kind of misuse of funds. But at the same time, we have to see who will be willing to put in money for an equalitarian society, because the people who are with us are essentially poor. The people who are with, I am the richest person that is in our movement. And I have a responsibility to give back more, and I do intend to give back more. But as time goes on, we do hope more people will join and more people will give their, what we call irve seve, their ant service to our work, and we will be able to do a lot more social good.
Sure, Chetan. Just to go back to my previous question, you don't have to answer this. If I may ask you, when was your last film that released, and how many films do you have in hand at the moment? That's exactly the question that people have on their mind.
That's fine. My last film that was released was in 2021. It was a film called Ranam. And my I have 2 films that are ready for release. And one film we are intending to go to Dubai for shooting. These are both films. One is now called 100 Crores, and the other is an unnamed film that is about to ready for release that we're shooting for Dubai. And they're both Kannada Telugu. And then I am in the process next month of shooting a film called Marga. So that is also a film that will be starting in the next month. So I have three films that two ready for release and one ready to shoot. And I am anticipating the one that I'm going to Dubai is a good film, and it's a good script. It's not a socially conscious script, but it's a convincing screenplay, an action film. And I am confident that we will reach all corners of Karnataka when the film is ready for release and publicity. And I hope people will like it. I do believe it is one of my better films after Aa Dinagalu Maina, and it can be on a level of a strong film that I have given in my 15-year cinema history
My
career.
next question includes you and other actors who share a similar mindset like you. So let me just ask you this question on behalf of all of them. Actors who basically speak their minds out, who voice their opinion, especially who are anti-establishment, they're often cornered by their film industry. It could be in Kannada, Telugu, Tamil, Malayalam, or even Hindi for that matter. Do you feel you're being cornered in the Kannada film industry because you voice your opinion and you're anti-establishment?
What do you mean by cornered?
In the sense, you probably are not getting the kind of opportunities that you should have got for the kind of talent you have.
There are compromises you make on a professional level, undoubtedly. 10 years ago, after a success of Maina, which I argue is one of the best Kannada films of the past decade or even more, after that success, the number of offers I was getting and consistency of offers I was getting was much more than what I'm getting now. But at the same time, as a film actor, I benefit as an individual. As a film or successful film actor, I benefit in terms of my bank balance. I benefit in terms of my popularity. I benefit in terms of my overall reach in Karnataka in terms of glamour and other things. But as an activist, we can benefit the lives of so many people beyond us and those who are most deserving. So there's societal benefit involved. When you opt for personal benefit, then it is self-serving, like a vast majority of society to various levels. When you opt for societal service and societal benefit, there are compromises you must make on an individual level in terms of your own personal growth, in terms of growth of your bank balance. But that is not something that I feel sad about. That is something I understand and I come to terms with, and I fight more because I've already been benefited with so much from birth and from the success of my few films that I have made, and from a lot of my educational background and from my family's educational background. So there's so much benefit that I have gotten. To seek more is very self-serving. So I must give back more, which is justice, and those that have been deprived educationally, caste, gender, class, and in all other ways must be given more, must be provided more opportunities, must be given justice. And that justice is a very important part of the Ambedkarite, Periyarist, and equalitarian model is what we need.
So then we just have a few minutes left before this show ends. So I'll ask you a couple of questions before I let you go. Now, like I mentioned in my introduction about you, we got to know you as an actor way back in 2007 through the film Aa Dinagalu. The film was a sleeper hit,
Yes.
Right? And after that, you did Maina, which I would agree was one of the best films, one of the best films in the Kannada film industry. But then when you came with Aa Dinagalu, and when it became a hit, and when you look at it today in 2023, was this the intention you came to India? Did you come here to make films? And then do you think, you somewhere changed lanes?
I haven't changed lanes. See, Kannada film industry knows me, or Karnataka knows me since Aa Dinagalu, 2007 October.
Correct.
But I know myself 23 years before that, or at least 20 years plus, because 3 years, I don't know if I can remember myself, but I know myself for a long time before that. When I left America when I was 22, 23 years old, I left because I wanted to serve Karnataka, and I came to Karnataka to serve on a Fulbright scholarship. I was studying theater and drama and the way you would create societal benefits through theater and performance, street theater, etc. Now, that and I worked on a grassroots level. I directed plays, I worked on gender equality programs, I worked on so many places in the coastal belt, and that was why I came. Now, subsequently in 2006, by chance I got an opportunity to do films since I was performing, since I was in the theater realm, and I took that opportunity just because it was seemed to be an interesting project. And it so happened that Aa Dinagalu became a cult classic. Now, that movie, Aa Dinagalu or Maina, or any of my successes or failures cannot be attributed to me because I am just a hand puppet. It is the director's vision, it is the writer's vision, it is the producer's money. They have made it a hit. Or essentially, if it doesn't succeed, it's because the creativity, it hasn't reached the same level it should. An actor is almost insignificant in the creative success of a film. So I got that opportunity. Now, once I had those opportunities, how can I forget about my intention to come to Karnataka, which was to serve the people, which was to do as much good as possible, which was to connect to the people on a grassroots level. Films gave me the platform, but essentially, films also, after Maina, brought me to a meeting of the activist circles. In fact, if I knew the activist circles in 2006, 2007, before Aa Dinagalu, I would have never joined film. I would have just gone into activism. But since I was from America and I was almost a babe in the woods, everything was new, culturally new, linguistically new, socially, historically new, I was kind of navigating. And at that point, since I got the film, I decided to give it a shot. But films gave me that platform, and I will never forget that art should be used not just for entertainment and definitely not just for business the way cinema is. Art must be used as a medium for societal change and evolution. And for that reason, I I came for study theater. I had a chance to do films. And today I am doing that on a grassroots level where I'm using my platform as an artist to build other kind of cultural kind of transformation and resistance. We talk about tamte, which is a instrument of the vadya of the Dalits and the Holya Madikas. We talk about Togulugumbe, which are these puppetry of the Shilekyatas, Kole Basava, Chendadasa, which is Bailnatka, and all these kind of cultural forms are extraordinary cultural forms. So as an actor, I can continue to act in different plays, but I can also bring out the whole cultural universe of our Mulnivasis and our Bahujans and our marginalized communities, which is also my responsibility as an actor. So on that level, I feel as though I am actually expanding the vision of what an artist should be, rather than limiting myself to somebody who just acts and makes money in front of a camera. I'm actually kind of enhancing and uplifting to the best of my limited ability the whole cultural universe of our Bahujans and our Mulnivasis and our marginalized communities.
Chetan, I want to end this interview by asking you one last question. Given that what's happened over the last in the last week, would you be careful with your words when you're tweeting or when you're talking henceforth? Would you word yourself better?
Mr. Shreyas, as long as I have been in activism, I have always watched my words carefully. I have never sprayed hate against any community. I have never promoted violence. In fact, I keep my name Chetan Ahimsa for non-violence. And I have never done anything that is violative in terms of freedom of speech in Article 19. I intend to continue to uphold those values and ideologically, intellectually bring forth transformative vision through what I believe is equalitarianism that Baba Sahib and Tande Periyar brought forth. So if I am doing anything violative, I am very much open to taking punishment. And I will even say those who are doing such questionable hate speech or promotion of violence in any quarters, in any party, they should be held accountable and they should be questioned and they should be put in the punitive punishment accordingly. But if These forces of inequality cannot defeat me or our ideology in the battleground of ideas, and instead want to make personal slanderous accusations, want to silence the voices that are truly upholding democracy today, which we'd like to believe is us, then that is a failure of them, not a failure of us. We are upholding democracy. We will continue to do that, and we will continue to assert what we hold to be true, which is equality, justice, and rationality. And we will do it with the most poise, with the most appropriate language, without anything offensive in terms of vulgarities. But if people are offended by the ideological premise, then that can't be held on our shoulders, because society on a day-to-day basis that is exploiting secularism, that is violating secularism, that is violating so many appropriate wordings, that is offending us and making up histories, false histories, twisting and distorting histories for their own ideological or their own communal or their own political benefit is offending us. But we are not putting them in jail. We are instead defeating them in the battleground of ideas. If they can't do it, they must accept defeat and step out, instead of trying to force us into silencing us by putting us into jails or by putting false charges on us, because false charges will not hold, and the people of Karnataka and the people of the nation know that these cases do not hold merit, and this is a last attempt by an ideological foundations and a system that knows that equality will be the transformation and is the transformation.
Thank you, Mr. Chetan. Thanks a lot for your time, and thank you for talking to the Federal. We wish you the best.